25 years or so, I've worked with certainly the most famous professional athletes in the world and amongst the most famous celebrities in the world. From that unique vantage point and from a personal jolting life experience, one thing I can guarantee you, and this bothers me a lot because one of the person that we represent is today the biggest YouTube influencer. YouTube's like it's on the internet. And so the one myth that I've been asked to dispel is the concept of a happy life is a pain-free life. Let me say it again. Hollywood teaches us something that's erroneous, something that's fallacious, and not only is it dead wrong, but as someone like myself who speaks on campuses all over the world, and he speaks to a lot of, I think primarily millennials and Gen Zs, this concept of a happy life being a pain-free life is one of the causes of people living with tremendous anxiety, tremendous depression, and I should hasten to add, I think the majority of millennials today are leading lives of quiet desperation. Let me tell you the personal story that happened to me, and I think this is the very first time I've ever said it live in front of 2.3 billion people live streaming. But I told this once before, seriously, I've told this once before at the Age Turner, but they told me to, I think this is, if there's ever a time, it's now, as to why I am very comfortable and confident saying live on camera that the concept of a happy life being a pain-free life is completely incorrect. And the fact that every single one of us walked in here today with preconceived ideas that are completely wrong. So this is the incident that happened to me that was obviously jolting, that changed my life, and certainly was the beginning of a pivot in a completely different direction. So it was 1990. I just graduated top of my class at Harvard Law School, blue skies, big man on campus, great job. On paper, this is amazing. So I was asked to fly out to a certain chasna or whatever in Los Angeles, and I stood up and told a few jokes. I came back to sit down, and the mother of the color said to me, "Are you feeling okay?" So I thought, maybe she doesn't like my jokes. I mean, I had a sniffle. Whatever, I was burning the candle at both ends. This is the life in the big city. I said, I don't know, maybe I'm a little run down, but that's it. She said, "Do me a favor, go this second to the hospital." So I'm thinking it's a little bit aggressive, but this is the mother of the color. So I'm not, this Shalom Bay's Kadman Torah. So I went to a certain hospital, better left unnamed, and I went the following day to a friend of mine to slough off what I thought was just a cold. And here's the phone call that I fielded that really caused me to do a lot of deep thinking and certainly has been the theme for the last 25, 30 years. So the phone call went something like this. "Is this Anthony Gordon?" So I figured it's just the IRS, but eventually I realized, I said yes. So here's what the person said. "We're looking at your chest x-ray. We see like a cloudy area in the upper right side. We think you've got cancer. Do you have medical insurance?" That was also the tone of the voice. So that's not exactly the best bedside manner, firstly. Secondly, I'm single at the time, early 20s. I'm alone in the world. So at that time, I did a very selfish thing, which is a knee-jerk reaction. I called my mom in South Africa. I said, "Mom, this is the call I just fielded. It's inexplicable. I can't explain it. I know I'm not going to die. This is between you and I." Obviously, the next day, the whole of South Africa is saying, "Tehillim." So between that phone call of, again, "Anthony, we think you've got a Yana Machla," until the definitive diagnosis, which turned out to be benign, was 23 days. Now, unless you're a psychopath or you've got ice in your veins, there's no way in the world that phone call and contemplating meeting your maker is not going to change your perspective in life. I give a talk often about NDEs, about near-death experience. So something happens psychologically, something actually happens neurologically to a person when it's really real to you. You're contemplating, the Chevra Kaddish is not just, so this is now on speed dial. So in some primitive form, I had this conversation with God. I said, God, we're going to make a deal. A little bit of a chutzpah. I said, I'm in my early 20s. You've given me a lot of gifts. I'm not ready to check out. There's a lot of, I've got to speak at Project Inspire in the year 2020. There's a lot going on. So here's the deal, God. Give me one more shot, and I promise you that I'm going to do a deep dive into our beautiful heritage, and I'm going to take whatever the cards that you've dealt me and the talents that you give me, and I'm going to make it one of my life missions as best as I can to have a relation with people. So the definitive diagnosis was presented as a classic third stage Yana Machla, and it turned out to be completely benign. So that changed my entire perspective, because while it was going through while this was happening, here's what I was thinking. This wasn't the script. I mean, I was supposed to go to South Africa, I was supposed to go to Harvard, marry Christy Brinkley with a shaitel. This wasn't in the script. I mean, what happened here? And so the concept of preconceived ideas is a very insidious thing that we think in our mind's eye, we've got this whole thing mapped out. Let me tell you how powerful the concept of preconceived ideas are. And again, for those of you who came a little bit late, besides speaking and whatever involved in the curative world, my full-time job is we represent some very, very famous athletes, whatever. So I can't say names, but if you Google me if you Google me on Shabbos, we're all in trouble. But if you Google me after Shabbos, the things, the public names you'll see are Justin Bieber and John Legend, and these are big people, Jessica Simpson, all these Mishigoyim. I've become their Rabbi. This is the craziest thing. So during this whole thing, it was jolting, and at the end of it, I was bothered by why I was bothered. And what I realized is I had this whole life planned out, and like every single person in this room, there's bumps along the way, and things happen that we don't really appreciate, we don't understand, and we look heaven-bound and we say, why me? So one of the people that we represent is the biggest YouTube influencer on planet Earth. I spoke to the person who's the brainchild, and he explained to me, I said, I'm speaking at an event about, I'm starting off talking about preconceived ideas. Help me understand from a media perspective, how is it that there are millions and millions of people that are drinking the Kool-Aid? And they believe things, and they're making major life decisions based on fallacious things. So tell me one thing, in the marketing and advertising world, there's a concept called the illusory truth effect. So instead of explaining it, let's just illustrate this. What I want you guys to do, hopefully in unison, is say the word silk, S-I-L-K, 7 times. Let's try that in unison, okay? Silk, 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 silk. Cameras get in. Silk, silk, silk. Excellent. And what do cows drink? Okay, cows drink water. Now, why is it that there's a knee-jerk reaction that we all scream out milk? So this is the concept of, it's an amazing concept. So here's what happens with the illusory truth effect. They have shown in a double-blind study that if you repeat something at least 4 times, there's something neurologically that happens where your critical thinking almost becomes marginalized, and you act like an automaton, and you start taking things in without thinking things through. It's unbelievable what goes on. And especially if it's a major personality and they're telling you things and they repeat it, you mummish start functioning like an automaton, your critical thinking is put on hold, and years later you realize that you ascended a ladder and it's leaning against the long wall. Why? Because you based it on something that you heard through pop culture, which is completely incorrect. So for those of you who walked in, like we said the following. We said that every single person walked into this room today with preconceived ideas. I made a pretty big supposition, and I said that I guarantee you that many of the preconceived ideas that you harbor are not only false, but there are many preconceived ideas that people make major life decisions based on that are causing them tremendous anxiety, tremendous stress, And our job in the Torah world is to learn to think critically and to dispel, for sure, the insidious pop culture that is around us, and no one is impervious to it. In my many years of speaking and travels, I think, and the easiest one just to take into Shabbos is the notion that a happy life is a pain-free life. And what we're going to do today is we're going to unpack that and show you that that's certainly not the case. And I'm going to replace that by what you should be thinking in terms of how you approach your life. And I believe in my heart and soul, and I've tried this many times, it'll change your Shabbos, it'll change your life, and it's probably the single best tool that you can give over to your children. So let's unpack it for a second. There's two words in that maxim, that a happy life is a pain-free life. So here's what pop culture has done. They've conflated two concepts. One concept is happiness, the other is fun. And they purposely have done that. So I spoke to someone like such and such is a major marketing firm. There's a few people who spoke, and I said, I'm giving this talk, it's live streaming in front of 2.4 billion people, I better be telling the truth. So here's what the difference between fun and happiness, and this is how it's confused millions and millions of people. Again, I think it's best explained if I give out a scenario, and all I want you guys to tell me is the scenario that I'm explaining, is it fun or is it happiness? Yechiel, suppose after Shabbos we will go, I don't know, Stanford, we'll go to the local amusement park, go to the roller coaster, up and down, vomit, whatever they do. Is that fun or happiness? Fun. So fun is something that's transient, it's ephemeral, it's synonymous in the English world to a moment of joy or bliss. That's certainly not happiness. Here's scenario number two. I don't know if you were there, but about a year and a half ago, in 2 weeks' time, I'm walking my son down the aisle to get married. I guarantee you, because it's happened twice already, that by the second step down the aisle, a tear will well up in my eye, and I'll be wallowing by the time we hit the chuppah. Fun or happiness? Okay, so what's the difference? What's the fundamental difference between roller coaster, Six Flags, and walking my kid down the aisle? You're 100% right. What's the difference between fun and happiness? And again, this is very dangerous, that there's a conscious effort in the Western world in pop to conflate them. Tell me what the difference is that you feel between those two scenarios. Very good. Very good. Happiness touches on the neshama. Fun is something that doesn't touch on the neshama. I'll tell you, as a non-American, the first time in my life, and it dawned on me I've never heard the concept before, the salutation when you say goodbye to a person, you say, have fun. In the English culture, I've never heard such a thing before. It's a very dangerous thing, because the people that we represent, these Mishagoyim, they're all about fun. One other public person that I can tell you again, because what made me leave the practice of law is after 6 months of the practice of law, the partner walks in, he had a folder, handed me the folder, like one of these manila folders. I turned it upside down and it said Janet Jackson. So we represented Janet. It was a copyright case. So as a result of that, I ended up becoming friendly with John Branca. John Branca at the time was representing Janet's brother. I don't know if you've heard of Michael Jackson. One day John says to me, he says, why don't you come to the house, the palace in Bel Air, we're having a barbecue. I said, I keep kosher. He said, do me a favor, you're a colorful guy, I want people to meet you. It was in the 90s. So I don't know if anyone knows the music world. Everyone and anyone who was a big schwitzer in the music world was there. Prince, princess, queen. It's just, after an hour and a half, I'll never forget this. I reversed out of this Bel Air mansion, sick to my stomach. I've never under one roof met so many dysfunctional, unhappy Mishagoyim in my life. Okay, and this is who pop culture is putting on a pedestal. This is who millions of people are aspiring to. We represent them. I'm their Rabbi. I'm telling you, these people would want anything to have a meaningful life, to have a relationship with their significant other, to know who their children are. So the concept of the dangerous thing of conflating fun and happiness is the one very dangerous thing that has happened in our society. What happiness is, the closest concept, the closest to happiness in Lashon HaKodesh is simcha. If you look at the shoresh of the word simcha, Rav Hirsch says, the same shoresh means to grow. True happiness can only happen through one doing something that's growing, that's meaningful, that has to hit the kishkas. That's the neshama. That's something that's more than just ephemeral. That's something that has meaning. That's something that touches the neshama. And understand that the pop culture has done everything they possibly can to take God out. It's a conscious thing. When they secularize the Western world, they're taking God out. By so doing, if you tell people this is an experience that touches your soul, the only thing they know about soul is that a fish. It's a dangerous thing that's happening. So the first thing is the concept of a happy life is a pain-free life, is that the Western world has conflated fun and happiness. We said that fun is something that's transient, it's ephemeral, it comes and goes. Happiness, true happiness, is something that touches the soul. Why is it that a person, let me back up a sec. Does anyone in this room know anyone that they look up to as successful, as great, that had a cakewalk? They had a silver spoon in their mouth. It was not a single vicissitude in their life. And I've asked this question many times in many places. It's never been a yes. Why is that? And let me repeat the question. Is there anyone in this room who, if they think of someone who's great, or someone that they would look up to, that had a completely seamless life, nothing went wrong, there was no vicissitudes, there was no bumps in the road? Why is that? So the Rambam says something very interesting. The Rambam says there's 4 levels of the concept of pain, which we're going to come to in a second. We said there's happiness and then there's pain. There's 4 levels according to the Rambam. The most benign level of the concept of pain is mammonos, is financial. It's painful. If you can't make ends meet, or FOMO is crazy what's going on in the Klal Yisrael, people are out shviching themselves, kiddush, whatever. It's something that people feel. The next level up is something, chas v'shalom, that deals with health. Because that's something that you cannot buy. The form of pain with something that touches on health, according to the Rambam, is the next level up. The penultimate level of pain that a person can feel is vicarious pain. That's a pain that a parent feels for a child. So I deal with a lot of kids that are struggling. Their parents are climbing the walls. It's a very painful thing to think, we did everything right, and I don't know where these tattoos came from, Rabbi. So vicarious pain is a very, very painful thing. What is, according to the Rambam, the zenith? What is the quintessential, the most heinous pain that we can feel in this world? Indifference is no pain at all. The worst thing that you can possibly do is feel that you're alone. It's perhaps not by chance, by the way, that Apple's very first ad was a faceless person dancing alone. It's a very lonely generation out there. The way that we know that's true is the Nachash in the Chait of Adam HaRishon. He had everything. He had the dust, he had his food, he never had to look heaven-bound, and the notion of I don't need is the most painful possible thing. The Gemara says very clearly, if you go 30 days in your life without a form of pain, it's not a good sign. It means that there's a concept of tzimtzum, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu steps back and says, you think you're the bee's knees? Gesundheit, go live your life, I'm out of here. It's not a good thing. The Gemara's concept of pain also is you can put your hand in your pocket and take out a cord, but it's not a good thing that you go 30 days of your life. How do we bring this back to the beginning of what I said? The notion that we're supposed to live our lives with complete painless life and everything's supposed to go out, that's what Hollywood has inculcated into our mind's eye. When you bench your daughters on Friday night, what do you say? They should be like who? Do you know what kind of lives they had? You're benching your kids. They had why don't we say that you should be like Jessica or Jennifer? They went to an Ivy League school, they married a doctor, they've got they've got 2 places in the Citadel, they've got something in the Waldorf. Why don't we want to be like Jessica? Because that's not why we're here, Rabbi say. The only way that a person can possibly actualize your potential, the only way that you can flex spiritual muscles and ensure that which lies dormant becomes actualized is if HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you opportunities where you have to dig deep. It's not by chance that the most expensive wines in the world are sourced out of a grape. How does it start? You've got to crush that grape. It's not by chance. I'm from South Africa. The most precious minerals in the world, you have to dig deep. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done. It's very, very dangerous that there is an adage out there, and then Hollywood and Western culture has inculcated into people's mind's eye that what we should strive for is a life without pain. We should go hang out in Hawaii with pina colada. There's no word in the Torah for retirement. It doesn't exist. Do you understand what a precipitous deterioration a person has when they think they finally left their CPA practice? They hang up their shingle. That's gewaldig. It's the biggest nightmare. That's not why we're in this world. So let's go back to the preconceived idea. We said that a happy life is a pain-free life is a concept that the Western world has imparted. It's completely erroneous. We then started to unpack this myth of a happy life being a pain-free life. We looked at the word happiness. We said one of the confusions is that the Western world has conflated fun and happiness. Fun is something that also does not exist from a Torah perspective. We're not saying we say Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. It's the Ivdu, it's not the simcha. If you're working and you're doing the right thing and you're living a meaningful life, so memele you're going to be happy. The concept of that happiness is something that's out there, is antithetical to Torah. It's interesting because I was speaking to a bunch of college kids, and they were saying, but Rabbi, this is what it says in the Declaration of the Preamble of the Bill of Rights. The inalienable right to the pursuit of life, liberty, and that's not a Torah consumptive. Happiness is not exogenous, it's not out there. You don't pursue happiness. It's not in that state or that state, it's in the state of mind. And how do you have that state? It's living a meaningful, purposeful life. There's no doubt, I told my wife, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu take some South African miles away, I had no idea this, and land up representing these Mishagoyim, these rich and famous, and involved in Kiruv. It's such a clear thing because I'm seeing the people, the idols, and these are the people that people put on mantelpieces. I know these people. These are dysfunctional, unhappy people. Every one of them are household names, and I speak to these people, and we've got it in our backyard. But we're striving, hopefully, for happiness, not fun. Let's go now to the concept of pain. We're going to unpack that, and then we're going to bring it together before the standing ovation. Okay, the concept of pain is also something that people have confused. What, my friends, is the opposite of pain? So, very good. So most people say pleasure, because that's the way the Western world that's a classic example of the decadence of the Western world. People think that the opposite of pain is pleasure. The Emma said the opposite of pain is no pain. And that's why I'm dealing, a lot of people here are dealing with thousands of young kids that will do everything possible to avoid pain. Because the opposite of pain is pleasure. And with its abuse, with its substance abuse, with its pornography, Rabbi, as long as I don't feel that pain. Very, very dangerous. Maisa Ava similar banim. We're supposed to know that every single person in this room is going to have 10 tests. Now, Sefer Shalom said, if you think for a second, pedagogically, you could figure out the 10 tests in your life. Every one of us is going to have 10 major tests, and we're all going to have an Akeda. And every single one of those tests is meant to take that which is dormant and actualize it. And the only way that's going to happen is pain. Does anyone know how a pearl is made? So what's the animal in the ocean that's the source of it's an oyster. So here's what happens with an oyster. An oyster, if there's between the shell of the oyster and its body, if it gets a bit of grit, it's very painful. It's rubbing. So what the oyster does is it descends to the bottom of the ocean. It jettisons the shell, and there's a certain chemical that it exudes that covers this suit, whatever it is, and it hardens to become a pearl. So can you imagine at the time of this little piece of grit, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu put at that time, the oyster takes a Valium or smokes a joint. You won't have oysters, you won't have pearls in this world. The most beautiful things in this world come from, and how do we know that? Because the Gemara uses as a pedagogical example the birth of a child. That is the example that the Gemara uses. The 9 months of gestation. But what comes out of it is nothing more beautiful than holding in your hands the next generation. That's how we know that the concept of the Western world saying do everything you can to neutralize pain. Why? Because this fallacious concept that the opposite of pain is pleasure, not true. And there's also a subtext to this, and that is the notion that pain is bad. My friends, pain is not bad. From a Torah perspective, pain is the price that you need to pay for greatness. How do we know that? One of the most important lessons or most important things that everyone, God willing, in this room will do is being a parent. Is it easy to be a parent? It's very, very hard. Is it easy to have a good marriage? No. So the Western world has said that love is an emotion. The Torah doesn't say love is an emotion. Love is a byproduct of giving. The more you give, the more you love. And I had a group recently, I spoke in Tom's River, to a group of parents of special needs children. A woman came up to me after such an unbelievable insight. She said, Rabbi, I look at all my kids. I know I'm not supposed to have a favorite child. You just told us the story of Yosef, but there's something about this. Because at 3 o'clock in the morning, the mother is getting up, and it's a byproduct of that extra effort, and a byproduct of that is love. So to tell people that pain is bad, or pain is something that is avoided, is taking one of the major premises of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu put in this world. If a woman came into this room right now and walked across to this podium, would you think that's an amazing, great feat? So what happens if I told you that this woman was born with polio, and every step was Herculean? Because the concept is, the tougher something is. It's very interesting. When my first year out of law school, we represented a certain actor. This actor came up with the concept of the underdog, of overcoming adversity. He pitched a certain studio. The studio laughed in his face. There's not a chance. People are not going to watch this thing. He went from one studio to another. He came to studio number 6. At this time, our client was broke. Mamish is holding by the gemach. The studio said to him, we'll buy the script of you for $250,000, but here's the condition. One of our actors is going to play the protagonist. You're done. We're going to just buy the script from you. So he had a very tough decision to make. He was completely broke. $250,000. He said he believed, and he said, not a chance. I'm not setting the script unless I play. The final studio that he walked into, Sylvester Stallone made the movie Rocky. Rocky's not a movie about boxing. It's a hechetim, so the boxing thing is because it's the story of the underdog. Why do you think it was such an unbelievably famous cult movie? Because we scream for the underdog. Why is it that the person who's on Bel Air, that's got 15 units in the Citadel and 16 in the... It's because people who overcome this are natural, and that's the wiring HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into us. Is the notion that greatness and happiness is something that happens against odds, that overcoming vicissitudes and adversity, that's the Metzias, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into this world, and that's why our matriarchs and our patriarchs all had brutally tough lives. Because when we bench our kids tonight, we're not going to say that you should be like the magna cum laude kid at Princeton. Every single one of them went through enormous, enormous tests. And the notion that we should do everything possible to live a life where we completely, we neutralize from tranquilizers, that's not why we're in this world. In the preamble of Mesilas Yesharim, we know that one of the reasons why we're in this world is to be omed banisayon, is to overcome things. That's the sign of greatness. I say this with such passion because our clients have got these hundreds of millions of dollars. They've got yachts and toys. They're miserable people. Someone showed me, there's a research that just came out recently of kids of billionaires, ridiculous wealth, that are given a trust fund, $100 million trust fund. And they've tracked these kids years later, longevity, like 20 years later. The percentage of juvenile delinquents amongst kids of billionaires is off the charts. That's the reason, by the way, tonight when we cut the challah, you never hand the challah to somebody. You put the challah on the table and they take it. Because bread of shame, you never give something to, because you take away a person's dignity. That's one of the reasons why you never put challah into a person's hand. You leave it on the shulchan, at the table, and they'll grab it. There's nothing worse. There's nothing more insidious than giving a person $100 million and say, you don't have to work a day in your life. That's not why we're in this world. So let's do a little summary where we're holding. We said that everyone walked into this room with preconceived ideas. I made an audacious comment and I said, that some of the preconceived ideas that we harbor are completely erroneous. Not only are they erroneous, they are the reason why millions of kids are suffering from anxiety, depression, etc. I use the example in terms of what pop culture has imparted, that a happy life is a pain-free life. And I said that there's nothing further from the truth from a Torah perspective. How do we know that? We started unpacking two key words of a happy life is a pain-free life, and that is the word happy. We said that pop culture has conflated two terms, fun and happiness. There is no concept called fun from a Torah perspective. Happiness, we know from Rav Hirsch, is to grow, is to do something that connects with your neshama. That's true happiness. Fun, we said, is transient, it's ephemeral, it's you get drunk, you vomit, and you wake up the next day. Shkoyach. Then we looked at pain. We said that pain, we said there's two subsections of pain. Firstly, we said that the pop culture has told the Welt that pain is bad. That's a terrible thing, because you've got millions of millennials who are doing everything possible to run away from pain, that are neutralizing pain with every form of addiction, including social media. It's a real addiction. The people that we represent help me understand the dopamine, what happens to a person when they get liked, what happens to a person that is living their whole life by the responses, that's living their life by virtual friends. It's the most insane thing, because those virtual friends are also, it's not real. We then went on to say that a very dangerous thing is that the Welt today says that the opposite of pain is pleasure. Decadent. The opposite of pain is no pain. And then we went on to say the notion of you should strive for a life without pain at all is actually a collar. We quoted the story of the Nachash of Adam and Chava. We went on to talk about the Rambam's 4 levels. The zenith of the Rambam's 4 levels of pain is indifference, having no pain at all. And the pedagogical example of that is the Nachash, is the snake. I then asked the question, and I said, if you think of people that are great in your life and that you really feel have achieved something, has it been easy for them? You'll find that is part of the journey of greatness. A part of the people that we look up to are all people who've overcome tremendous life vicissitudes. As a sidebar, I use an example of how is it, this is an intelligent audience. How is it that we actually harbor, we believe these things? Because there's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars being pumped into the economy from self-serving industries using strategies like the illusory truth effect. I gave the example of saying the word silk 7 times and everyone blurted out milk. This is a smart, because this is what happens. It's very insidious that our clients say nourishkeit and people believe it. And unfortunately, I just got back from Eretz Israel literally a few hours ago. We met with the Prime Minister, we met the President, with everything that's going on in Israel with the Kaisar. It was painful to see these are the top echelons of the Israeli society are believing things that are completely not true. And it's based on the same, they get repeated. The hatred that they have for the Haredis, it's unbelievable. They get brought up from the time they're little toddlers. These people they don't go to the army, they schnorrers, and it's an unbelievable thing to break down. We then went on to say, why is this so bad? And then I want to stop on time and we'll take some questions. Here's why it's bad. Because here's what's happened, not once, not twice, but hundreds of times in my life. We teach discovery, we teach a number of seminars, and usually at some point I'll see that the light goes on. There's a pencil yid, and it's very clear when someone's starting to connect. And after a while, I've done this hundreds of times, reach out to someone and say, Moshe, you obviously are you working to live or are you living to work? So no normal person says we're working to, we're living to work. We're not here to work. If we're not living to work, then we're working to then what's life about? When you take that and you want to pivot them and you say, okay, if you really want to figure out what life's about, if you don't want to ascend up the ladder and look back at your life and it's leaning against the wrong wall, if you're not going to be Sam Walton, who's the founder of Walmart, who was a one of the richest people in the world, and by the way, anything I say, I check with Snoop, Schmoops, everything I say, I've made them. Pesach Crone told me early in my career, never ever say anything that you haven't checked. So this is 100% true. What is the last words out of Sam Walton's mouth? I blew it. He was dying, he looked he looks across the room at his estranged wife and his kids that wouldn't speak to him. He blew it. He blew the whole purpose of life. So we are sitting here, and here's what happens often. When I speak to these kids and say, take some time off, go to yeshiva, go to seminary, take a few months, figure out what life's about. Because the Western world has told you something which is completely antithetical to the Torah. The Western world has said you live and learn. We don't believe in you live and learn. We believe you learn, and then you go out and live. Because life's a GPS, and we all know the very final destination. We all know that we're going to end up in the Chevra Kadisha. How do you make sure that you recalculate less? How do you make sure that you're not like our clients, go through 7 marriages to figure it out? How do you know that you don't have to? Because if you learn and you understand that we have the instructions for living. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not a game. He's given us the instructions, and more than that, it's an open book exam in the next world. He said these are the questions. So here's what people say. Rabbi, you sound amazing. You're very passionate, funny accent, but you don't understand. You don't understand, Rabbi. I've got a storm. I've got a storm in my life. I've got to figure out how I first have to get into a relationship, so I have stability. Rabbi, you don't understand. I've got a storm. I first have to get out of this marriage, which is toxic. Rabbi, you don't understand. I first have to have kids. Rabbi, you don't understand. I first got to wait till the kids are out. So I'm here to tell you, my friends, there's nothing else that you can learn in Project Inspire before Shabbos, that we are not in this world. The notion that you are going to wait till the storm subsides is an optical illusion. You're not going to wake up on Sunday and have an extra $2 million in the bank and there's complete bliss in your marriage and your kids are sitting in the corner and reciting Tehillim. That's an optical illusion. Why? Because we're not in this world. We are not in this world to wait till the storm subside. We're here to dance in the rain. And those are the successful people. And that's what part of Project Inspired is going to be about, is to take the stumbling blocks and make them into stepping stones. Is to make sure that you don't become a victim, but become a victor. Is to know that there's every single person that walked into this room and into Project Inspired has a peckle. I've done this for a long time. I've never, ever, ever stood in front of a group and I said, is there anyone out there that doesn't have any pain in their life? There's no peckle. It's all. No one has ever stood up. Proof positive. That's the Matthias. And people have got whiplash looking around saying, Rabbi, if I had his wife and his bank account, don't count his wife and don't count his bank, count your blessings. Because there's 8.7 billion people in this world. And out of those 8.7 billion, 0.2% are the chosen people. And out of the 0.2%, at best 10% are taking time to come for Shabbos in the snowy Connecticut, whatever. Do you understand that every person in this room, the Gemara says very clearly, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, you are the diamonds. In this room, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is betting on every single one of you, that you have been given the torch to carry for the next generation. And I can tell you, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's sense of humor that we represent the biggest names in pop culture. I think one of the reasons why I put me there is so I can say from first-hand experience, if you striving to be these Mishagoyim, I'm sitting with them and they're schwitzing that they're waiting to get a phone call that one of their kids is in rehab again. It's a horrible life. Everything that you need for your happiness, you've got. Have you ever seen a doctor look at a person's bag next to him who's a carpenter and look for a stethoscope? Have you ever seen a person who is a plumber looking into the person's doctor's bag looking for a stethoscope? Everything that you need, you've got. If you're not on the Forbes list, that's not what you need. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created and given us a beautiful symphony orchestra. Every single one of us plays a unique instrument. And together, it's a very unique sound that we bring to the world. It's a dark world out there, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really betting on each and every one of you as we start Shabbos and Project Inspired to bring light to a dark world and to hopefully bring a bit of warmth into a very cold world. I wish you a wonderful Shabbos. Welcome to Project Inspired. I'll take any questions for about 2 minutes, and welcome. Thank you.
So you spoke about indifference.
Yeah.
Let's say you have children. Let's say you have a child.
1 second. We've got how many? What time's the next speaker? 3 minutes. Okay, we take 2 questions, right?
How do you break through people who are indifferent about their indifference?
Oh, it's a great question. Okay. Okay. So the question was, how do I get an accent like you? Wasn't that the question? No. So the question was, it's a very good question.
How do you break through to people who are indifferent
Okay. It's a pretty beautiful question, by the way. It's a magnificent question. Rabbi, how do you break through that people who are indifferent in Yiddishkeit? Now, I've been in this field for a long time. Does indifferent mean FFH, from habit? Or, which is one part of the Klal Yisrael, or is it someone that he or she is struggling so much that they won't come to the Shabbos table, that they've gone the other way? Okay, I deal with this a lot. Okay, I want to just give you some basic rules. The worst thing that you can possibly do to any child who, and I hate this concept, or maybe I should, is it recording? Okay, this is a little bit, I don't think this should go on record. I hate the concept of the derech, because that's already starting with, if you don't feed the neshama, it's going to have that emptiness, and they're going to come back home. I've seen this hundreds and hundreds of times with kids that everyone was miyash. So the concept of indifference is temporary in in almost every single case. I'll take one more question, and I don't want to take over the YY's class. Is YY speaking here? Any more? What time? Oh, okay. So is there any more thoughts? I'm going to be around. I think I'm speaking tomorrow.
How do you, people who are generally not get very anxious, how would you
Okay, so another great question. This is an amazing class. Can I paraphrase the question? Do you think, let me ask you guys, because I'm writing a book which is coming out, I think, hopefully. Okay, it's a great question. Can I add a corollary, just a writer? Do you think people are born happy? What's a natural proclivity of a human being?
Yes, I think they're born.
Okay, I've had this discussion with a lot of people. My late mom was a shrink. I'm surrounded by my whole family's a shrink. So do you think that people are generally have a positive, are we predisposed to be happy or not? We are 100%. When a baby falls down, do you ever see a toddler fall down and say, where's the Prozac? That's it. They get brought up back, they bounce back up. That's what we learn from babies, right? So there's a natural proclivity of we happy people. So your question was, just if I understand, if a person is not naturally happy, what's the end of the question?
how would you try to change that?
Okay, so how would you try and change that? Okay.
What would be the paradigm?
Very good. So I live in a city where people spend money they don't have to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. That's Los Angeles. Again, they spend money they don't have to buy things they don't need to. That's what's seeped into Klal Yisrael. I said this at the Aguda convention. I can get away with it because I'm not. That's what's happened now to the Jewish people. Kadosh Baruch has given us more money. It's beautiful. It's people learning. But everyone's out schwitzing each other. Do you think that's making people happy? I deal with these guys. I deal with these guys that got $10 million and say, Rabbi, but there's a guy out there who's got a private jet. That's where Klal Yisrael is holding. Okay. So the first three things is gratitude. What does a Jew do every single day when you wake up in the morning? So modani, right? But there's the last two words of modani are Rabbi emunasecha. I have faith in you. The creator of the world believes in you. The only reason why you woke up this morning is because you have a reason to be in this world. So first thing is perspective. Secondly is gratitude. Gratitude, I've done this with many people. If you get a person to say for 30 days, there's a reason why 30 days. For 30 days, every single day except Shabbos, write down 3 things that you can be grateful for. I guarantee you, and I'm saying that with circumspection because I guarantee you that the paradigm will shift after 30 days. It changes neurologically. I mean, there's neuroplasticity. The way, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So that, number 1 is your perspective. Number 2 is, I tell people, if you can chaza for 10 minutes a day in Chovos HaLevavos Shara B'tachon, know that to be makana somebody else is kfira. They got that. I want that shaitla. You don't need that. So first is perspective, is gratitude, and also, sometimes I've taken kids who they've got everything. I've taken kids for a half a day to go to hospital and volunteer to give, right? Emotions come from motion. When you emote, you change. If you're not happy and you know it, you still clap your hands. Well, I always have like Simchas Torah. There's always one guy in the corner who's saying, Rabbi, I'm not coming in. Listen, you don't understand. I just lost my business. The way it works is you dance, and so the byproduct of motion is the emotion. It's a very tough. The 3 things again are perspective, is gratitude, and moving. You've got to keep moving. The natural depressed person is a person who doesn't ambulate. And what happens is they start focusing on, everything is focused inward. I've done this with lots of people. When I was in yeshiva, the Rosh Yeshiva used to say when a guy didn't feel well, we used to bring him to the Beis Medrash, and we used to start moving the bimah, just to the left. He forgot that he was depressed. The Torah says very clearly that what do you think when you go out into a blue sky and you go for a walk? It changes you. I said the reason why, one of the antidotes to depression is if you go out and go for a walk. Why do you feel better afterwards? There's something to be said. It's not only just the endorphins. Emotions come from motion. So the opposite is when you're sitting there, like you're sitting in the bed and you do nothing, your thoughts are going to it's called very dangerous. And that's where people don't understand that the Yetzer Hara is an iteration of the Malach HaMavis. The Yetzer Hara is an iteration of the Malach HaMavis, of the angel of death. He wants to kill you. The Yetzer Hara, there's a kuntras called the 7 things of the Yetzer Hara. If he gets you to have atzvus, if he gets you to be depressed, he's got you. If he gets you to be depressed, and one way to get you depressed is if you a victim, why me? You're done. And it's a very, very vicious cycle, because then you start doing things that you have charata for, and you start beating you up, and then I'm a shmendrik, and then Rabbi, I'm jumping off. That's it. That's exactly what the Yetzer Hara does. So to counter that, motion, your self-talk, you also have to ask Rabbi Pliskin once at a Gouda convention, what's the best book that he ever wrote? And he said his book on self-talk. That's what you tell yourself is extremely powerful. If you hear the word I, Rav Dester talks about this, the difference between saying I or you. If it's the you, it's usually coming from not a good place. I usually is the Yetzer Tov. I don't know if that made sense. Okay, guys, thank you for your time.